Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at how you can defeat every single boss in DBZ Dokkan Battle and essentially how you can take them on and have the best time possible. Now in this video we are going to be taking on good old Mr. Devilman. We'll be taking on every single boss. I'll show you my teams and discuss the boss's overall abilities and strategies. It's important to note I use mono teams traditionally, so that should, in theory, give you a pretty good idea as to how I deal with everything. Now, in terms of Devilman, it's pretty straightforward. He will reduce damage received by extreme class by 90%, so you need to use a super orientated team. That's why we're using the free-to-play Team Bardock team. Now, for the free-to-play Team Bardock team, you will notice that we are using the new AGL LR Bardock as well. This is to give us a good sense of health with his raw stats. Next we'll be taking on the good old Catopesra. No idea if I'm saying that correctly. He is not too bad. He seals on his super and hits for about 300 or so thousand. He also raises his defense one turn. Here there's no restrictions, so we'll be using a Ginyu Force team just so that we can have a fairly straightforward time using this team as well. So this allows us to free up quite a few different teams, which I think ultimately does assist us with having some spare units left over for later on in terms of challenging some of the other bosses. It's important to bring things like sealing and stunning so that you can have various tools as well. So that's also something super important. And attack lowering is something that's also incredibly important as well. The next boss we'll be taking on is the first boss of level 2, Yamcha. Yamcha hits for about 400k or so, give or take. Yamcha is a int type character, so we'll be using a super physical team to take him on. He raises his attack and defense greatly and lowers your attack and defense on his super. He's immune to stunning, but not to sealing, and so ideally we want to bring a sealer here. Now because Yamcha is not outright the strongest unit in the game, you can pretty much just get by on raw stats here. You shouldn't necessarily have a huge issue with this guy, just due to the fact that you should be able to get away with the utilization of just a purely strong enough team, so you shouldn't have any major problems. So that's Yamcha out the way. The next boss of level 2 is very similar. It is Goten, or Goten Baby. Now Goten Baby is an extreme strength unit. He disables attack and defense down, which is always a little bit annoying. He causes supreme damage to the enemy, grants immunity to being stunned, disables attack and defense reduction, and reduces damage received. He also hits for about 500,000, give or take, which can be annoying, but other than that, he's not anything too crazy. For here, we'll be using an extreme AGL team. No specific reason, just my super AGL team is a little bit stronger than my extreme AGL team, so I tend to resort to using that one just when I need to. Like, it does tend to give me a really solid foundation, so I tend to divert to that one for later on, as I think the Super AGL is a bit more flexible and has a bit more going on. So yeah, overall, in terms of I think overall not too bad. And then the final boss of level 2 is the Supreme Kai, I think it is, or the Supreme Grand Kai, or West Kai. Oh yeah, Grand Supreme Kai. There we go, got his name right eventually. All I had to do was look at the screen. So yeah, other than that, you can pretty much have the same apply to him as you do to Yamcha and Possessed Goten. So he greatly raises attack and defense. He seals you as well, which is quite annoying. He's immune to stunning, disables attack and defense down, and reduces damage received. So the same rules apply to him as you do for other ones. Overall, he is pretty solid. I think overall, it's a very, very simple up to level 2. Like, I don't think it's specifically anything too crazy. I think level 2 is a fairly simple concept. Now we finally have Tech Bardock, who's the first boss of level 3. Now Tech Bardock is where things get a little bit spicier, I want to say. These bosses hit for around 1 million generally, give or take 1 million, 1.1 million. So they all hit fairly solid. I'm not going to say they hit tremendously hard, but they all hit fairly solid. Bardock, he disables attack and defense down. He also reduces damage received, but he also has an increased damage reduction rate when a character whose name includes Frieza is present. Now this is pivotal because if we're using an extreme int team, we need to be careful about bringing any units that are Friezas. But that's okay, it's not the end of the world. So for me, that was quite easy to work around with extreme int. It wasn't like the hardest thing in the world to kind of move around that, concept of using, no Frieza characters. Then after that, we face Frieza. Frieza raises his attack and defense and also greatly lowers your attack. He's immune to stunning, so sealing again is pretty good. His attack, however, is raised when a Pure Saiyan's category enemy is present. So this is pretty important because most teams, especially if you go super physical, will probably run a Pure Saiyans, and this is why I used my super physical early on and rather retained my extreme physical team, as I'm less reliant on Saiyans. In fact, I have no Saiyans in that team, and so I tend to have a bit of a better time with handling that procedure. So I have a bit of a better time dealing with that kind of restriction of having a Pure Saiyans not on the team. It doesn't mean that necessarily I'm completely fine, like I have no worries or anything like that, but just in general I am able to handle things a little bit better overall. So I do find that worked out a lot better. Next we have the strength Piccolo and Ultimate Gohan. So they greatly raise their attack on their super, they're immune to stunning and attack lowering, which is quite annoying. They are probably the one I find the most annoying because they're lock switching, which means they can randomly lock one of your characters in place, and this can be very, very irritating. So it's one of those things that's difficult to work around. They also obviously hit fairly hard. Here I used a super AGL team, which is why I saved it for later. Fortunately, there's no real character or class or any kind of restrictions that one might generally face with these guys, so it tended to work out, I would say, pretty decently. I'm not saying it was a simple situation, but I don't think it was intrinsically super duper hard taking it out. So I think there was a fairly consistent foundation there. Next we take on Soanel, I think that's how you say their name. Soanel and Pirina. They recover HP, they reduce damage received, they reduce damage below a certain threshold, the attack goes up with each turn passed, and they disable attack and defense reduction, which is quite annoying. So they are probably one of the more difficult ones to handle as well. I think for me, where they probably represent the most challenge is that you need to bring quite a high damage threshold. So a lot of units that traditionally I would bring, like B-Pan and that, where I get healing out of her because of the damage she does, that doesn't work here. That damage does not count. So it's actually quite annoying because it reduced our effectivity quite a lot. Next we have the Trunks. So this is Saiyan Trunks Teen, and he is the final boss of this Ultimate Clash. Greatly raises his attack and defense for one turn and causes immense damage to the enemy on his super. He's immune to stunning and he's immune to sealing, so very similar to our good friend Vegeta back in the day, so very different to Metal Cooler. His attack, however, is lowered when a character whose name includes Gohan Future is present. There's actually a really great Super Saiyan Gohan Future Attack 1 that you could use here. So I'm not going to say that there's not a chance to use a Gohan here. I really think there is. And if you do want to bring one, I think that's great. I used an Extreme Tech team just because I feel very confident with this Extreme Tech team. It's a very strong team. It's a very good team. It's at a very solid level for me. Like, it's at a point where I'm very happy with how it presents. It's very simple to use, very stable to use. It doesn't suffer a lot of issues. And for me, it was just a very straightforward team to run. Yes, there were things that could have been better, but I think ultimately this team didn't really suffer at any point in time. I think it was a simple team that ran very well together, and I think ultimately ended up producing an incredibly good result. A couple things in terms of rotation here that was super important. Obviously, we're running the two Brolys together where possible. Ideally, I would have liked to have had the perfect cell on the other rotation. The androids are also very good, not because of their ceiling or anything, but just because of their skip. Their Ghost Usher gives us a free turn, which allows us to set up ourselves for damage, or just to skip really bad damage if we don't want to take those. So yeah, that's something that's very, very good, which I thought was incredibly helpful. Then we also have, obviously the kind of Zamasu and Zamasu Goku Rose link up. That was also something that I think was very good and came together very nicely as well. So that was a cool kind of team to run together. I think everything on this team worked very well. So for me, it was one of those teams that I think worked to a very high level. There was good synergy with links. There was just a very good, foundation for the team that made things very easy to, kind of put together. It wasn't a team that I felt like I had any issues running, as there was no individual unit that felt like a massive weakness. There were units that definitely could have been massive weaknesses, but few and far between. I think it's like maybe, two of them that maybe would have been an issue for us if they were caught with the super. So I think for me, there was definitely fairly friendly, simple team build that didn't give me a lot of problems. Like, it didn't give me a huge load of issues. So I was fairly happy with it. I think, for me, definitely super duper happy. And I think for me, I was definitely very, very comfortable with this team. So I think, overall, very, very good. And for that, the team was simple to put together. If you're running a super tech, I think you can run that fairly easily. Like I said, there's a great future Gohan on that team that I think makes life a lot easier as well. So I don't want to, say that there's not any good team functionalities or anything like that. Like, I think there's a lot of good alternative tech builds. So I think overall you should be, at least at a point, fairly comfortable with this team and with this build. But yeah, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. If you have any questions or queries or comments, let me know down below. But that is it from me. Bye.